Okay, we're recording.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Data Lab here on the Sports Affiliation. Dennis Michelson and Dr. John Bush back for another episode. And this week, Professor, we're going to tease out a little bit of data that folks are going to see at the Fantasy Football Expo in late
Yeah.
July. And we're going to kind of show you the data
Mhm.
behind one of our posters.
Right. It is positional touches. So let's think of that as a proxy for opportunity versus consistency relationships across ages, rookies to year 9. So uh, there is, the question I had was, we need to start treating rookies like rookies. I don't see a lot of that blending that I think we need to at least be aware of. Again, we need to present a map of opportunity versus consistency. See, so that's the big picture. Positional differences occurred, and you can probably see the red and the blue here, Dennis. Kind of, if you look squint, you could see they look different. Those are three different positions, and they're different. So we cannot, and you're thinking, well, everybody knows this, that, and I understand that, but a generic everybody knows versus specific, what do we do about that knowledge? And, what is it telling us? And just kind of flavors the soup of our draft coming August. That's part of it. And the expo, if you're listening, you'll be able to come and ask us deeper questions about this. So let me see if I can get a little quicker here. There we go. Let's see, Dennis. It's a little blurry because okay, there it goes. Let me get a little bit. I'm up in the yeah, the deal here. So this is tight ends. So let's start with running backs. I think we talked about this last time a little bit. So Dennis, what we have is the what you and I have been calling the career arc, rookie year 2 to 9, the consistency metric that I think is Bush LR. I forgot actually, could be calm, but anyway, opportunity, which is from touches, and this is average there. And then I looked at the top 25 of each group. So I looked at only the top of the top for all these studies. If you include the running backs that the 100th running back, that's going to skew the data. That's not who's going to win you. The top 25, I think, is, that's the plate with all the goodies, Dennis. You go to that buffet and that dessert station, that's where the goodies are at, okay? Versus the vegetable station, okay? You pick and choose there. You avoid the Brussels sprouts and the other crappy stuff, and you hit the cake and the pie and the cookies. Come on now. So this is allowing us to focus to the treats. And I think the treats are who's in the top 25%. And what I did was I scaled the data. And so right here, the consistency is 100% year 8. The metric is 0.09. So that is the best. And then each year is a percentage of the best. So year 6 is second at 99%. It's 0.08 in consistency. So it's 99%. The worst is rookies. It's a minus number, 77% off the best, 22% less in consistency. Then I tracked opportunity. the highest opportunity for these guys is year 5. Isn't that interesting? And year 7. And then here is the percentiles here of that. And then I did a ratio of these two numbers here just for us, where are they far apart? Where are they close together? And the higher the ratio is further apart they are. And rookies are the highest, Dennis. Consistency is higher than their opportunities. So I think that may be some human. I think we have rookies that probably are more consistent than I think they're being credited for because they're not given opportunity because of what money. There's probably a number one running back, and you don't want to beat him. So I think there's the rookies. That tells me that we're probably not seeing their best. And year 2, notice it changes, it halves and it gets closer. And notice both numbers go up. And it starts, but if you look, it kind of after year 2, it doesn't change a lot, right? It went from 77, 10%, and just that 1 year. And year 2 to 3 is 3%, then 3%, 3 to 4. It dropped down basically the same 4 to 5. So we're not seeing that big, people call it breakout. There it is, 10%. Look at the touches, 55 to 70, 20% difference in opportunities year 2. So if I'm a dynasty player, folks, what you think about running backs looks like if you can predict which one of these rookies should have got more playing time but didn't, you might find you a bargain. And if we plot the trend, Dennis, this is the trend of consistency versus opportunity, and it goes down over time. And I think some of that is coaches, too early, or yep, you're getting too old. We're going to take some away from you. We're scared that you'll break down. But in reality, I think they're probably more consistent later and earlier than you think. It's just they're not given the time. So there's a story about the old ones, the young ones, and the mid ones. And I think people kind of understand that, but this is a way to visualize that pattern, Dennis, and we can then use that as part of our mapping for our draft.
So I think you're seeing two things here with this data. You're seeing that coaches do not trust rookies with key touches in a game. So obviously you can score more points if you get in the end zone, but you're not seeing your typical rookie get trusted with the ball at those moments in time. You're looking at the veteran getting that opportunity. And that's why, even though the veterans, and again, this is selected out because in order to stay in that top 25%, you're still a very productive
good. Yeah.
8th-year guy, but that population is shrinking.
Oh, yes.
Okay, over time. So the survivors are quite valuable because they're getting high impact touches, whether that's in the passing game, whether it's opportunities to score more touchdowns. So I look at this data and I look at the consistency over time of a running back, and I don't see the fall off the cliff that a lot of people talk about in fantasy football. But in order to not to have the fall off the cliff, you got to be really, really good. And that's so I don't get worried about a Derrick Henry getting another year older because he hasn't shown any sign of decline yet. None. Like, I don't care what data you're looking at. He's just as good the last couple of years as he was. Actually, he's better than what he was his rookie and second year in the league. The other takeaway that I get from this is there's no such thing as a 3rd-year breakout for running backs. It's the 2nd year
Yeah.
is the big increase. And all we got to do is think back to some recent cases. Look at Kyron Williams, a nothing his rookie year. Second year, he gets all the opportunity and he paid off. Look at Chase Brown with Cincinnati, a nothing first year, mainly because of injuries, but just didn't get the opportunity. He had a guy mixing ahead of him. So, of course, he's not going to get the opportunities, but then was trusted in year two. So, you don't have to stick around for a long time. And the way that this kind of plays in is because his cost is so cheap in ADP, maybe I take a shot at a Caleb, Johnson from Pittsburgh and say, I'm going to stash him, change a coach, second year in the league. Maybe he does something this year. You get him as a free square, adding him at the end of a draft. So it's not like he's costing you a 10th round pick or even a 15th round. He's an 18th, 19th, 20 round guy that you can get. In fact, there's a bunch of those running backs that have a path to some success. Maybe it's injury. Maybe it's just getting an opportunity. And whether he's a rookie or a second year guy who did nothing as a rookie, those are the kinds of guys I'll take a free square draft pick on as a parting gift from the draft. If he doesn't work out, you churn that roster spot for somebody who is getting the opportunity. But, this is what this data is telling me, is that those first to second year guys, there's going to be a big step up. And then once you're established, once you have shown consistency by years 2 and 3, that longevity is fabulous. So I'm not going to worry about necessarily selling my running back who just had a great second year. I'm not going to sell him for a draft pick and have to start all over. I'm going to ride him for a few years before I think about selling him. Once I get to 6 and 7, if my team isn't a contender, I'm getting rid of those guys and retooling, because eventually that decline will come.
Yeah.
But this data,
just keep track that the numbers are falling.
Yes, the
And
numbers
so
fall.
these numbers are going up because the sample size is smaller in this group.
But that makes sense. That
Yeah,
makes
well, it
sense of
does.
the survivors who got
And
to
it's
that
going
second
to
contract.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, just I think maybe dynasty may benefit versus redraft, but just for this year's opportunity, Dennis, just you and I need to really focus on last year's rookies. And I know you have already. This is not like Dennis is needing this to tell him what to do. It's not that, but it just reminds us the importance of it. So when Dennis's opportunities that he's doing this year, we should kind of look back and just say, okay, what did we think this year? What's changed for year two? In other words, is there a way to spot this breakout a little bit? And people try to do that. And I'm sure it's probably obvious, Dennis, but anyway, I definitely wouldn't mind your opportunity index at one point to incorporate a consistency. You can't do it for rookies, but year 2 and 3, and predicted touches, and, just some of that. And, the year 2 opportunity guys, the year 3, the year 4. I mean, it would be nice to kind of break apart your opportunity a little bit, especially when we get some more data to test. It would be nice to see how that works. We're just starting it, folks. That's the thing with fantasy is the amount of data samples is pretty small. And we just started last year, but in 2 or 3 years, Dennis, I would love to focus on the year movement, opportunity movement, or whatever we want to call it. What are we expecting based on this data? And then what are you seeing based on your fine tuning and deep dive of the opportunity for year two, year three, et cetera? That I think is really going to make us some money.
Yeah, and there are guys that fit that second year guy this year.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
I already mentioned Caleb Johnson, but you also have Jonathan Brooks, who's a young back who's never gotten an opportunity because he's been injured 2 years in a row. So he's
Uh,
entering year three, but he's entering year three as more of a second year guy. But you got to pay for him. Like he's going in the ninth round, between the ninth and 10th rounds. That's different
it's
than a
pretty
Trey
expensive.
Benson.
Yeah.
That's different than a Trey Benson out in Arizona who hasn't done anything. Yeah, the he's lost on a depth chart right now with them adding Jeremiah Love, but that doesn't mean he won't be dealt to another team that needs a running back. So this is May 17th.
Yeah.
a, a lot is going to change, but understanding this data, you look at the second and third year guys because those are the guys that are going to have the leap. We get caught up in looking at the shiny new rookies all the time. And yes, some of them will flash. And I like Claiborne from Minnesota as a late round pick this year that I think could find his way up the depth chart. But there's second and third year guys that are unproven right now that I'm looking at and going, man, understanding this data and understanding what the data means at running back is key to finding those value picks.
Tight ends, same thing, same metrics. Long story short, here is the pattern, Dennis. Notice the opportunities as a rookie tight
Uh,
end 40%. And it's linear until finally late when you're the survivors. You're finally getting your opportunities year six. So it's almost like the first 5 years you have to play into that second contract and be, really having the opportunities. And your consistency, though, is not as dramatic. Look at that. It's close to a flat line. So I
yeah,
think, look at the ratio of rookies. It's so different. 85% year two, 88. It's a year three is 7%. There's one is 3%, the next is 7. It's not as dramatic as the running backs, that rookie to year two. In other words, they've always had that consistency. They're just not getting tight ends as general don't get. This tells me they don't earn what they probably should in the NFL until later when they've shown they're like a Kelsey or a Grok. They show just their dominant and their longevity, and people are worried about Kelsey. This data says probably not as much as you think you should worry about him. I would definitely have him on my radar. Maybe as my first or second back-to-back tight ends later if you're doing a streaming thing. I think that is perfectly acceptable. And I'm looking, this data says year three, uh, is for the opportunities, and even year four, Dennis, in some ways, some of these young ones, maybe, I'm looking, but I'm like in year six the ones that have got that second contract. I would love to see who they are and who that is. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the ones I'm interested in And there's some older guys, Jawan Johnson, Kelsey, Mark Andrews, some of these old steady guys, I think they're going to continue to get opportunity. And I think their consistency or lack of has been shown. So I think we've got some data, but it's a completely different pattern than this, Dennis. And that probably makes sense. Some of these, we're losing rookies, running backs a lot more than we're losing tight ends. I think they're coming together much more later. They're aging like fine wine, and they have to be treated differently than running. We're talking 2 year rookies should get your interest, whereas tight ends, you should not throw any tight end away other than maybe the general rookie, but anything else, I think it has to be looking at where they can get opportunity. If I think opportunity may be more important early for years 2 and 5 in tight ends than I think we have thought up to this point, Dennis. I think that's my takeaway is I have not paid that much attention to the opportunity index of some of these younger tight ends, Dennis, and I think we should. I think I'm focusing on these guys that have already shown, their business. I'll stop and let you comment.
Yeah, it all depends on the price tag on the
But
player
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right now, Colston Loveland and FPPC, that is premier, tight end premium scoring, he's going at the very beginning of the third round. So you're betting on him being almost as good as Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. And
Right,
I can see that for his ceiling.
right. So
But
he's year two,
he's a year two guy. And he was solid. He was a 75.
15% increase. If he increased by 15% in opportunities, where would he be, Dennis? Maybe that's another way to think about this.
Yeah, and he was a guy who started as a 50 last year in MVP index, and I'm actually forecasting him to be a 75. So I'm for
15% of 50 is close to 70.
yeah, it's about 62 and a half. So
Yeah.
I'm a little more bullish.
Well, that's okay. This is as a group, Dennis. As you know, it's a box and whisker.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that's part of our equation down the road. When I finally get your opportunity, maybe I include this in kind of the guts versus metrics concept, that we use for some of this. That would be neat to have a metric versus the gut concept that I posted here. Maybe that's what we're talking about for tight ends. I'm curious how that works for your opportunities.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big key here is understanding that difference. And at tight end, they're so peculiar because if the very best, you're going to have to overpay for. And if you overpay for them and you can get the best tight end, but
Bowers
at
is
what
the best or McBride? Which one is number one this year? I forgot. I haven't
right,
drafted.
right. Well, McBride is going just a touch ahead
Uh-huh. And
of
he would be
Bowers, and it
year
was
two.
yeah, and it was the reverse. Well, he's actually Trey McBride is year four guy.
Ah,
So he's getting in.
so Dennis, I think what he's done, he's more kind of at the plateau a little bit. He might get some more opportunities, but it's not like rookie to year two or even 2 to 3 is a little bit. We're talking 7%. So who's year 2 to 3? Is that Colston? Is that
Uh, your
Bowers?
2 to 3 is Bowers.
So
Yeah.
I think you could forecast him maybe at least 7% better and 12% more. So does that put him closer to McBride than we think?
Yeah, because McBride's going into year 5. So
Okay.
I was off by one. He's year 5 because I forgot
So
his
he's
rookie
still
year was
kind of
kind
at a
of,
plateau
yeah,
and
his rookie year was nothing. Like he did not do
well,
much his rookie
I-
year. But in my MVP index, he was a minus 22
yeah.
as a rookie, jumped to 92, then jumped 113, 129. I wouldn't be surprised to see him not only level off, but maybe drop just a touch.
But I'm
And the,
thinking Bowers might, given what I'm seeing in this pattern, might be closer than people think. I'm not saying
yes,
draft him,
yes.
but I think if I'm given if I have to draft one of the two, I'm thinking Bowers might be a better bargain.
And Bowers went from a 94 as a rookie to a 67 in MVP last year, but he dealt with injuries and he dealt with chaos at quarterback. So that 94 is probably more representative of who he is. But if you jump another 10% from his rookie year,
Yeah,
from
he's
year
over 100.
2 to 3, he's 100. And so he's a solid pick right now. But again, the question is, do I want to pay up with a first round draft pick because
Remind me to ask
he's
Gronk
going
about
number
that.
10 right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and Trey McBride's going number 9. So they're going back to back basically at the end of the first round. Now, I will say this. You can, if you're drafting him at 10, you can come back with a guy like CD Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Omarion Hampton, Devon Achane, or maybe even James Cook as your next pick. That's not a horrible start,
No.
but you're passing on guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jonathan Taylor.
Puka,
So,
CMC.
yeah, Puka would be a little earlier, but that end of the first round guy is so key for setting you up for that second round. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'll probably end up with very little in the way of uh, Brock Bowers or Trey McBride this year because that's pretty expensive. Even in tight end premium, you got Vegas with either Kirk Cousins or a rookie quarterback
Right.
to support Bowers, and you've got chaos in Arizona potentially if Jacoby Brissett would happen to sit out. Now it looks like they're going to get something done with him contract wise, and that would ease things. But this is Jacoby Brissett. This is not a quarterback who has been traditionally good year after year after year. And coaching change over there in Arizona, they're probably running the ball heavier than they did last year. So, or at least trying to. So that affects the tight end value as well. So I look at these guys, it'd be a lot different if you had one of the top tight ends and they were tied to Trevor Lawrence or Josh Allen or, a great quarterback. Then all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, okay, I can support going too early or going early for late first round. Understanding that I'm costing myself at another position, but this data suggests that you're right. Bowers is probably as good of a bet as McBride this year.
Wide receivers, it's another position and another different pattern. It's kind of interesting. This, I wasn't, if you would have asked me to draw these, Dennis, I would not have got any one of them right. I,
I would have gotten tight end right, I think.
yeah,
Because
okay.
I understand that that it takes a while to get the tight end going. I would have probably been a little bit lower on the rookies,
Yeah, yeah.
but otherwise, I think I would have had that one right.
The consistency is the breakout with wide receivers, I think is still year 2
Yes, I
here
agree.
from,
I agree.
yeah, I think so. 26% gain of opportunity, Dennis. That's crazy. Look
That's
at the blue line.
huge.
Yeah, look at the distance from consistency. We start plateauing about year three, four, and it never, I mean, if you're a survivor, it never changes. In fact, once you hit year two, Dennis, you're pretty much set on who you are, unless
Yes.
something. So that's something, that's a takeaway. The second is the opportunities, year two, three, four, kind of stay close. They bump up a little bit on that contract issue. And then if you get you a contract and you survive, then you're at optimal. They paid you a second contract. By God, you're getting everything you can get. And notice the blue line
Yes.
hits it, Dennis. So I'm saying the most efficient in this if you think of it like that, are these older 5 year, 6 year more wide receivers. For dynasty, they're gold. Tight ends never quite, they're close, but they never hit that. And rookies flash and then crash. And so I think dynasty would pretty much say this if you're a dynasty player, but I'm just surprised is how much these are on top of each other, whereas other positions they're not. So that's telling us something. I got to think about what that means in deeper. I don't know if people will, if I'll reveal it. That'd be some of our secret discussions, folks, throw a little money our way, a little Disney World money. I'm sure Dennis and I will let you in to our secret discussions, our clubhouse. It's a clubhouse fee, Dennis. And, we need, reservations at Cafe Mickey. Okay. We got stuff to do. Okay. We got wives to please. And so money can make that happen. But that's the kind of questions that we're interested in. But Dennis, I was really fascinated. I think the year two, it's hard to find this year. I don't know where year three came. I think that's
It,
selective memory.
it,
I
it
think
used
if
to
you
be a thing.
look,
It used to be a
maybe,
thing
maybe,
back in the 90s, but
maybe.
not anymore.
It looks like year two.
Yes.
It looks to me like things are really stable by year two. And so, again, your opportunity index, Dennis, I would love to see it broken down by years a little bit. I think that would educate us and probably sharpen your per forecast too. And look at this. I think you can, once somebody's year, it's almost like year five. I would predict, year to year, that consistency is pretty statistically significant. And, in the top group of those consistent wide receivers, I think they're going to be different than the lower guys, the more inconsistent. So I think those are just people in Dynasty treat them like blue chip. They are. I think this data says they are, folks. And it is worth your time to use Dennis's metrics, opportunities, and things that we're going to develop to find those guys and hold, forage and hold for wide receivers in Dynasty. That's what I take away from this.
Yeah, and this graph shows why I've been so successful in new dynasty teams because I've been grabbing all of the older wide receivers that fall too far in the draft. For instance, early on, I grabbed Chris Olave in an upstart, draft. I then grabbed guys like T. Higgins,
Yes.
Devontae Adams, Mike Evans,
Yes.
and I had no problem. And I understand they're going to age out at some point. But all I'm going to do to replace them is find the young guns. And I already did in a way because I have Chris Bell from Miami, Zakaria Branch from Atlanta, and Skylar Bell from Buffalo that I also drafted at what I thought were good opportunities. So if one of those three youngsters hits, they're available to take over for Adams or Evans in a couple of years when those guys fall off. But not being afraid of the 27 through 30-year-old wide receivers, the year 5 to year 8 guys. That's why I've been successful with those upstart drafts, because I want to win money early in a dynasty startup. I want to win year 1. I treat it more like a redraft league because you will get draft picks to replenish your stock. And as long as your ages aren't all the same, if I took all of my wide receivers that were all 28 to 32, I'm going to age out all at once. And in this case, I think I'm going to have Evans and Adams for 2 to 3 more years before I have to start worrying about replacing them. And yes, maybe they've got a little better injury potential. Evans has been missing a few games here and there, but I don't care. Can I get 10 plus games out of them? That's all I want. And I think this chart explains why that strategy has been successful at wide receiver. I don't use this strategy anywhere else, just at wide receiver. And tight ends, yeah, I don't have any problem with drafting an older tight end.
When people come to the expo, bring your camera, you can take a picture of it. This is the kind of thing where you just think about it, you go away, you listen to what Dennis and I say, you make your own notes, put it in your diary. Did you make any trades or any kind of moves based on this data? And is this helping you? I mean, if it's helping you, then we did our job. But you can't just look at this, oh, okay, I got this. This is not, even though it looks visually like the story's there, you've got to be thoughtful because those dots represent a box and whisker. And that's the hardest thing I've seen with any kind of data visualization, Dennis, is the range of outcomes sits there. And we shorthand it as the mean or the median. It takes a lot of practice, and I think I'm still working on that with fantasy data, is to visualize it's a range, it's a bottom whisker, top whisker thing. It is not, 80% rookies, that's it. No, it's a range. Some are higher, some are, going to be lower, but as a group, this is the number. And that's the hardest thing, I think, young folks in fantasy is they get tricked by the dots. And there is no power in the PowerPoint, Dennis. Okay, it's in your head. Okay, my guru says that. Okay, my Indian guru, which I share with that. I love this guy. He's a great comedian. And I sent him, but he said there is no, I think he said, F those PowerPoints. There is no power in that PowerPoint in the data. What he's saying is you've got to have common sense and be thoughtful. And I think that is what gets you to win fantasy. I think a lot of people think, I mean, you'll see week 1, they will be the best, the worst, and they don't understand why whoever they drafted first didn't win them the week. It's a weekly game. There's variation. I mean, people just, it's like, well, this is just random. Somehow they think their pick should be number one the entire. If you find a player that is number one in their position all 14 weeks, that's crazy. CMC is about 12 weeks, maybe 13 some years. That is gold. But nobody is 17 out of 17, Dennis. But I think people want it to be that way. And if it's not, they think it's random and they get discouraged and they start going tilt. And you're going to see it about the first play, even. They go, well, he was an overlay, or wow, he was the sleeper that I told y'all about. First play, Dennis, this year. Watch for it, folks. Listen and watch for it on Twitter. And the reaction, instant, I love it, instant reaction. What is an instant reaction? In science, it can be years for us to have a reaction to data. Okay, this instant reaction, I'm no offense to anybody doing it, but it's instant react. It's like instant pudding. It doesn't taste as good as the real slow pudding, right? It's here. I fried the steak real quick. Yeah, but you marinate it. See. I mean, it takes a while. Okay, the painting takes a while to be done, Dennis. Not just slap. I mean, they got the mystery pig in Australia. I saw that the other day. They put a brush in him. He's getting $10,000. Dennis, I'm gonna get my dog and put paint on his paws. I'm gonna start making us some fantasy football money selling his art. It's crazy, folks. Think about things, but you can come ask us questions. And again, I know there won't be anybody, but anyway, I'm open. You can come ask.
The smart people will come and will get something out of these posters, because last year we were giving away free information at running back that
Yes.
was actionable data
Yes.
that you could turn into cash. But you had to stop by, you had to ask a few questions before it really hit home. But what hit is that each position is different, and what we think is true is not. It's a year two breakout,
I think
not
so.
not a year three anymore. And by years 2 and 3, we know what we've got in a player most of the time.
Yes.
We don't care necessarily about, we just don't want to draft those unicorns too early, because we don't want to put faith in something that only happens maybe once or twice out of 100. That is a way to lose money quickly in fantasy football. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. The professor and I will be sharing so much. Hey, get your reservations for Bob Lung's Fantasy Football Expo right now. Get your tickets. Get your draft night out tickets. Come meet us at our poster session, and come on back here next week for another edition of the Data Lab.
Get to work, folks.